When we think of Cleopatra, vivid images of a stunning and seductive woman immediately come to mind. In every movie, Cleopatra is portrayed as someone who can make any man lose his mind, ready to sell his soul to the devil for just one night with the queen. However, it's important to understand that Cleopatra was far from a classic beauty. Some historians say she had nothing truly feminine about her, except for her body and cunning mind. But one thing is undeniable: she was charming and knew how to find the right approach to any man. The writer and philosopher Plutarch wrote about Cleopatra. Every word she spoke was filled with charm, and every movement touched the soul. The sound of her voice was a melody to the ears, yet she was not the kind of woman one would fall in love with at first sight. Cleopatra was fond of various beauty rituals like milk and honey baths. She lined her eyes with kohl and painted her nails. It was as if she intuitively knew the secrets of youth and beauty. It's also worth noting that Cleopatra was highly talented and educated. She played the harp, sang, danced, and had deep knowledge in many fields. She also spoke as many as 7 languages. Cleopatra lived before the Common Era, so I want to clarify that some of the following facts may seem shocking or strange by today's standards. But back then, they were completely normal. At the age of 16, Cleopatra married her 13-year-old brother, Ptolemy Dionysius. Their father had left them the throne in his will. Why did she marry her brother? In royal families of the ancient world, it was common to marry relatives in order to preserve the purity of the bloodline. In fact, her parents may have only been half siblings. After all, who really knows what was happening back in those times? For instance, Cleopatra had a large harem of men, and that was considered perfectly normal too. Cleopatra could have ruled Egypt alongside her brother, but fate had other plans. A rebellion against her began to rise, forcing her to flee the palace. Around the same time, Julius Caesar, the Roman emperor, arrived in Egypt to collect taxes from the Egyptians. Apparently, Caesar had heard about Cleopatra and wanted to meet her, but when he didn't find her in the palace, he sent a messenger to locate her. Cleopatra, realizing that meeting the emperor was her best chance to reclaim power, sent a gift to Caesar, wrapped inside a carpet. Caesar was delighted with the carpet, especially because when it was unrolled, inside lay a 20-year-old naked Cleopatra. The 52-year-old emperor greatly appreciated the surprise and enjoyed her company until morning. And let's not sugarcoat it, he immediately fell in love with the Queen of Egypt. The rebels who had exiled Cleopatra sensed danger. Ptolemy drowned himself and his advisor fled. But Caesar, being a strategic thinker, quickly married Cleopatra to her other brother. This helped maintain peace among the Egyptians, while Cleopatra remained the rightful queen, and at the same time became Caesar's mistress. Eventually, she gave birth to his son. Cleopatra later traveled to Rome to visit her lover, and her arrival was nothing short of grand. She sat on a golden throne, carried by muscular slaves. The Romans, unimpressed by Caesar's new affair, mockingly called her the Alexandrian courtesan. They were outraged when Caesar had a golden statue made in her honor, meant to be worshipped. Roman patience finally snapped, and they assassinated Caesar, especially since rumors were spreading that Cleopatra's son was being groomed as the next emperor of Rome. By then, Cleopatra had already fled back to Alexandria, where she may have poisoned her husband, but that alone wasn't enough to secure her power. Seducing Mark Antony, the Roman general, however, that would be enough. Cleopatra had a way with people. With Caesar, she was elegant and sophisticated. With Mark Antony, she drank and sang dirty songs, and he loved it. The two would even disguise themselves in simple clothes and roam the streets of Alexandria, picking fights with drunken commoners. Mark Antony was completely under her spell. After another military victory, instead of returning to Rome, he went straight to his Nile siren to celebrate. Back home, this was seen as a betrayal. Mark Antony even left his Roman wife. Enraged, her brother Octavian declared war on Alexandria. The Egyptian army was larger than the Roman forces, so Cleopatra and Antony were not immediately alarmed. That overconfidence cost them the war. Defeat also seemed to snap Antony back to reality. He began avoiding the woman who had so ruthlessly dictated his fate. In response, Cleopatra faked her own death. Upon hearing the news, Antony fell on his sword, bleeding out. Realizing what she had done, Cleopatra ran to him. holding him in her arms as he died. Once Cleopatra had tasted power, she never wanted to give it up. She attempted to seduce Octavian, but at 37, her feminine charms had lost their magic. Refusing to be taken prisoner, Cleopatra took her own life. She was buried beside Mark Antony. A truly fatal woman, this Cleopatra. Like the video and subscribe. There's plenty more interesting content ahead.